Shave my head. What? So I can't fucking stand that guy who does the fucking game theories channel show thing. Because for one thing, that guy is a fucking asshole. For another thing, everything he says is fucking stupid and wrong and can be proved. Like, okay, here's my problem with it. Everything he says is just like cherry-picked, out of context evidence to support a pre-established conclusion. He's just coming up with a dumb idea and going, oh, that'd be kind of weird and cool or whatever, and just makes a clickbait title. And then he has a pre-established conclusion and then goes back through the games to cherry-pick examples out of context and warps them through a certain, like, interpretation in order to get them to fit the already pre-established conclusion, and then ignores everything that contradicts him. In fact, he contradicts himself in his own videos a lot of the time. Like, fucking, at one part in the video he'll say, like, oh, you can't believe anything this character says because they're always lying. So we need to take what they say and conclude the opposite must be true. And then later in the video they'll say, that exact same character who they said you can't take anything they say as truth, you have to take them the opposite because they always lie. They say, oh, this character says this, which means that this. But what the fuck happened? You're just taking their word at face value? I thought we couldn't trust anything this person said. I thought they always lied. Why were you saying, oh, this character always lies, so we need to believe the opposite of whatever they say over here, but then over here they say something and you're just taking that at face value? Is it because you're full of shit? That might be it. And then the fucking smug, all his fucking, like, 8-year-old fucking fans. Oh, he's like, it's just a theory. He says it at the end of the video. It's just a theory. Do you not know what a fucking theory is? Like, a theory isn't just some, like, half-assed guess that you're throwing out there being like, oh, I don't know. Like, a theory, a scientific theory is like a conclusion. Is like you know, an accepted truth. Because, like, when you do an experiment, you have your fucking data and everything, you make a hypothesis of what you think's gonna happen, you perform the experiment, and then you have your conclusion that whether or not that matches up with what you thought the hypothesis was going to be, and then you just keep doing the experiment over and 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 over again, and if you keep getting the same results every single time with no variation and no exceptions, that's what a theory is. It's when this, you get this. That's what a theory is. And if at any point, anytime you perform the experiment based on those fucking, like, specific parameters, and you get a different result, then the theory is wrong, and you have a new theory. That's what science does. It just spends all day trying to disprove theories. People have made their entire careers off of disproving fucking theories. Like, why do you think it's called the Big Bang Theory? It's not because, I don't know. Why do you think it's called the theory of evolution? It's not because, I don't know. It's because all the fucking data and evidence we have and all the experiments we've performed with all that data results in this fucking conclusion. And so until someone disproves it, eventually, which is always a distant possibility, because the way that we understand the world around us and the methods we use to broaden our understanding of that world is always fucking changing. And so people are always taking new technology and new, like, fucking science shit and applying it to old theories to try and disprove them so that we can have a better understanding for the way the world works. But until those theories get disproven, they're accepted as truth, and then that informs, you know, our awareness of the reality around us. It's not just, I don't know. A theory needs to have concrete fucking, like, a foundation and can't be contradicted. This motherfucker not only contradicts himself and cherry picks data and examples to support his argument, but again, he ignores everything that contradicts him, which is fucking everything. And yet, you have his like old fucking 8-year-old fans who take everything he says as fucking like gospel, and it always fucking pisses me off. Sherlock Holmes said, "You must never devise theories before you have all the facts, because invariably one begins to twist the facts to suit your theory rather than devising your theory based on the facts." And that is all that quote is like all that the game theory show is. It's twisting facts to suit his theory, and I just find no value in that. That's why I hate like every kind of like internet theory stuff. You have that a lot with Dark Souls 2 is probably the best example, because that game's story is so deliberately vague that people just make up whatever the fuck they want and then go, oh, but then this thing. But when you really start analyzing those theories and start looking at the evidence that's actually presented in the game itself, you're like, you just made this up. Like, there's nothing in the game that would actually lead you to logically conclude that based on what was presented. Like, my favorite one that was dumb was always Solaire is Gwyn's son. Because, if you don't know, in Dark Souls, Gwyn, who's like the Zeus of that universe, had 3 kids, a son, 2 daughters, one of which was a boy, but they raised him as a girl because Japan. And and like the first son like accidentally burned down like the Library of Alexandria, basically, so they expunged his existence from history. And that's based on a real thing, by the way. That actually happened in real life. The guy burned down the Library of Alexandria because he was like, I will be remembered forever now. My name will live in through history as the guy who burned down the Library of Alexandria, and their punishment was to wipe his existence from history. So we know he did that and why he did it, but we have no idea who he was. So that was like their punishment for it. So that's what happened to Gwyn's son. Like, all of the statues depicting his image got torn down. His name was expunged from history. Like, there's like the family tomb of all of Gwyn and all of his family, and he doesn't get one. And all this cool shit. And people, before Dark Souls 3 came out, said, I bet Solaire is Gwyn's son. I bet Solaire, this character who like everyone really loves, if you've even heard of Dark Souls, you know who Solaire is. And people are like, oh, I bet Solaire's Gwyn's son. And then you look at them and you go, why? Why do you think that? And they go, 'cause it'd be cool. Yeah, but what evidence do you have to, like, what item description or piece of lore did you see? Oh, I didn't, but I just think it'd be really cool, though. It'd just be really cool, you know? It'd be cool, though. I mean, you don't know what happened to the son, so it's probably, so he's got a son on his thing, and he's like, oh, I'm looking for the son, and Gwyn's the son, so, like, maybe he's the son, though, and you're like, you're fucking retarded. And then fucking Dark Souls 3 comes out, and Gwyn's first son is in that fucking game. And guess what? It's not fucking Solaire. So that's always my favorite example of, like, why internet fucking theorizing is always so fucking retarded. And, like, Dark Souls is probably the most readily apparent. And another one. People say, like, Manus from the Abyss DLC in the first game. Maybe he's the furtive pygmy. And you're like, why do you think that? And they're like, well, because what happened to the furtive pygmy? They mentioned him, like, once in the opening cutscene, and then you never find out what happened to the furtive pygmy. It's Manus. Maybe Manus is the furtive pygmy, because why would you never hear about the furtive pygmy again? like, it's not based on anything in the game. You're just making up bullshit and then going to the game to look for things that support your idea that you fabricated from nothing. And because you already have that pre-established conclusion and you're just looking for things to support it, you then ignore and make excuses or workarounds for everything that contradicts you because you've already decided that your theory is correct. So, oh, of course, this seems like it contradicts, but it actually doesn't, because then I would be wrong. And I can't be wrong because I came up with the idea. So that's all that shows, and it has no value to me because you need to actually look at what's in the game and then come up with your theory. Like it's hard for me to like put it into words because it's just so ludicrous to me, the idea that you need to explain to someone, no, you wait until you have all of the evidence in front of you and then try and put it together into what you think it means. You don't come up with what you think it means and then look at the evidence. That's fucking stupid, and that's all that show fucking does. In addition to self-contradiction and clickbait titles and whatnot. And my favorite, and like, every single time, like, I always love, he did some videos on, like, Undertale, and Toby Fox tweeted about it and was like, dude, no, like, no, he took some of Toby Fox's early, like, Earthbound ROM hacks, because that's what Toby Fox did before making Undertale. He made Earthbound ROM hacks. And so, like, he took some Earthbound ROM hacks and was like, oh, you see what's happening in here, and that gives us insight into Undertale. And then Toby Fox tweeted and was like, dude, I made that like fucking 10 years ago. It doesn't mean anything. It's weird to me that you're even looking at this. What the fuck is wrong with you? And then, like, he does a shit ton of videos on Five Nights at Freddy's, because Five Nights at Freddy's is just this fucking... Ugh. I don't have the animosity towards Five Nights at Freddy's that a lot of people do, but holy shit, is it oversaturated and dumb. And he just did fucking video after video after video on Five Nights at Freddy's, because that's such a YouTube gold mine, you know. Like a year ago, it was such a YouTube gold mine to do a video on Five Nights at Freddy's. You would get so many fucking views. And he did a video like, the real story of Five Nights at Freddy's Uncovered. And again, as you can expect, it was self-contradicting, cherry-picking evidence, ignoring everything that disagreed with him, all to support a pre-established conclusion that you would never naturally arrive at from actually experiencing the game. So everyone was like, oh, and they fucking, like, tweeted it at the guy who made Five Nights at Freddy's, and he was like, that's a cute video and all, but no, you're completely and totally wrong. Like, that's, like, how did you even come to that conclusion? That's so far and away not what's going on in that game. And then the fucking Matt and Pat guy got fucking indignant about it and was like, no. It was actually this, you should look it up, because it was a fucking hilarious breakdown. Because the guy who made Five Nights at Freddy's was like, no, this is dumb, you're an idiot. And it was so fucking great. But, like, that's all his, like, the one I always think of is the Portal 2 one, because that was the one where he was like, Gladys said this, but she always lies, so we have to infer the opposite of what she said. And then, later in the video, he says, but then Gladys says this! Take it completely at face value. If she said it, that means it's true. Like, you're fucking retarded. And then, again, that's my favorite one, because he starts out saying, no, the companion cube is alive, and it wants to stab you. And then, by the end of the video, he's saying that the companion cubes have dead bodies inside of them. The companion cube really is alive and really is talking to you, because there's a dead person inside it. This guy has like fucking over 1 million subscribers. YouTube was a mistake.